Greetings and welcome to today's CFO Leadership Council program, Getting RPA Right in 2021. What does it take to scale your automation program? Given the challenges you're all facing currently, we're especially honored that you've chosen to connect with us today. And of course, a special thanks to Oxys, today's exclusive webcast sponsor. Oxys is a leading management consulting and outsourcing firm helping organizations modernize their back office. For more info, please visit oxys.com. Our guest speakers today are Eduardo Diquez, Consulting Director, Intelligent Automation Practice at Oxys, and he's joined by Chet Chambers, Vice President and Chief Evangelist at America's UiPath. My name is Kristen Todd. I'm the Vice President of Marketing for the CFO Leadership Council, and I'll be facilitating today's session. Joining me today from the CFOLC team and working her magic behind the scenes is Katie Todd, Manager of Partner Relations. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. Your lines are muted so that there are no distractions. However, we encourage your questions throughout today's program, so type them in the question area in your dashboard and I'll ask on your behalf. Today's program qualifies for 1 CPE credit. To qualify, you must be a current CFOLC member and answer all of the polling questions in today's program. In order to answer those polling questions, you must be logged in. If you've dialed in and need CPEs, please hang up and use that direct link provided to you in registration. Also, at the end of today's program, you'll receive a quick 30-second survey. We hope you'll complete, as we do love your feedback. Be sure to connect with us online via our website, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. We will get you the latest CFOLC and industry news. We have several programs in Q1 and beyond ready for 2021, so please visit the website. Registration is open. Check that full calendar online. If you're not a current CFOLC member and you are interested, we have several levels of membership: premium access and standard access. All levels of membership include CFO Connect, our online members-only forum, and recordings of all programs. Our recent conference, all sessions of recordings are also available to our premium access members. And now it is my pleasure to introduce today's guest speakers. Eduardo Diquez, Consulting Director, Intelligent Automation Practice at Oxys, is including the ongoing management of its IA Center of Excellence in Costa Rica. With over 10 years of experience in process improvement and finance transformation, Eduardo has a proven track record working with CFOs in the design and implementation of back office optimization initiatives, with a deep focus on implementing long-term scalable automation programs. He has successfully delivered over 200 robots to more than 30 different organizations across multiple industries. Some of Eduardo's recent clients include Baptist Health, Revlon Cosmetics, Pandora Jewelry, Melia Hotels, and Emirant Bank. Eduardo holds an industrial engineering degree from Universidad Metropolitana in Caracas, Venezuela, and an MBA from Babson College. Chet Chambers, Vice President and Chief Evangelist at America's UiPath. He was a successful early adopter of RPA technology, back when functioning robots were still science fiction to most people. He saved his previous healthcare employer millions by analyzing data on a previously impossible scale. Soon after, he moved to an executive role at HP, partnering with UiPath to deploy 224 robots in under a year. Phew! Chet was so smitten with UiPath that he came on board as a chief evangelist, helping UiPath customers scale their RPA initiatives. Eduardo and Chet, we are so grateful for your time with us today. You can take it from here.
Thank you so much, Kristen, and thank you everybody for coming. Today we were supposed to also be joined by Jose Manuel Perez, who is the VP of Intelligent Automation at Emirant Bank. Sadly, he had a personal emergency and won't be able to join us. But if there is any questions specific to his journey and what we're going to be talking about today, please submit them, and we will make sure to get back to you with those answers. So that being said, let's dive in. So one of the things that we wanted to discuss, it's, RPA, scaling, what has happened in 2020 and what's coming in 2021. One of the big things that we have seen is that nearly 50% of organizations will be increasing their spend on RPA due to COVID-19. There has been countless of new conversations happening through the year as companies try to not only build a scalable platform as they're going to be growing, but some of them, based on the economic uncertainty, have decided to really scale back on their FTE count, and has created a lot of headcount deficiencies in a lot of the departments, and are looking for RPA not as a way to really reduce their staff, but actually to run their business on a scalable way. RPA software is really increased in 2019 to 2020, really 63%, which is staggering amount compared to any other technology out there. And there's a lot of investments happening across the board, and 80% of CFOs are really implementing some type of containment initiative for cost, and 20% are looking to do really investments on digital transformation. And this is why I think RPA is a key technology that will enable a lot of organizations to do that. But that being said, it's really hard to do it at scale. Most organizations, 65% of them, don't go after, and do more than 10 processes. They're really starting and really doing the investment. There's a lot of them that have experienced buyer's remorse. And it all goes around how to do it right. 63% of organizations, are having issues delivering the deadlines and finding the right talent to make it happen. And only 3% of organizations have really done at scale automations, 50 processes or more, which is, to me, staggering across the the landscape of the market. So we thought that it would really make sense to take some time and discuss not only what organizations are doing right, but what are they doing wrong when it comes down to trying to scale their automation programs. And really, I think Chet today is going to give us a great insight around those topics. So that being said, I want just to start by asking the first question of first polling question. Sorry, which is so what best describes the stage of your RPA automation journey? Are you planning to get started in 2021? Are you piloting, you have less than 10 processes in production? Or are you expanding to more than 10? Or RPA is not a priority right now? I'm going to give you some time to respond to that.
Excellent, Eduardo. We've just launched the first poll, and people, thank you so much for your quick responses.
Hey, Eduardo, anybody that answers RPA is not a priority, I'd like to spend a little time with later.
That's me too. We'll do that together.
Well, it looks like you may have some fast and furious friends. Stay tuned. I'll just give everyone a couple more seconds to answer.
Well, Eduardo, what I really liked about where you were going leading up to this is it's not about reducing headcount. Now it's about getting all the work done. COVID pulled revenue down. COVID pulled, the number of employees down. How are we going to get all that work done with fewer people? So it's a good point.
And most of the conversations have really been happening, and this is where I think that really thinking about 2021, where is this going to have a great role, is that a lot of organizations are taking the time to really look at this technology as a way to do more with less, without having to go through the very painstaking process of headcount reduction, which has already happened.
So, gentlemen, I just shared the results. I know, Eduardo, since you're sharing your screen, you can't see the summary, so I'll read them out to everyone. So the answer is 53% answered planning to get started in 2021, 4% piloting, 23% implementing, and 19% RPA is not a priority.
Great. So I think there's a lot of conversations that can happen from that. I think that at the end, as we look at 2021 and seeing how this technology can play a role, naturally, the majority of organizations are aligned with looking at automation, specifically RPA, to achieve those goals. So why is it so hard? And this is where we wanted to spend some time. And most organizations do not start with the end goal in mind. Most organizations try to begin with, we just want to have robots. We just want to understand how to get the technology, getting cost savings in there, trying to reduce cost as the only and main benefit of robotics, where RPA is much more than that. It's, it provides improved visibility. Now that it's a great enabler for digital transformation, now you have all this transactional information going through your robot that can be gathered and reported on. Operational reporting has really improved through RPA. I think 50% of the robots that we have built have some type of management reporting tool, with it to enable that. There's a lot of revenue enablement, and a lot of people don't think as RPA as a revenue enabler. But if you can move your transactions quicker, be able to quote faster, answer with less mistakes, you're going to basically, you're going to be able to have a lot more revenue going, happening faster, improve your cash flow cycle, but also be able to retain and get additional clients based on the speed. And this will change naturally from industry to industry, but a lot of organizations, the faster the better when it comes down to the front end transaction processing. You also want to make sure that you have a scalable platform and I would say team, as organizations go through seasonal, retailers now go through the holidays, construction companies go through new projects, companies of that nature that need to scale up and scale down aggressively depending on the time of the year. Usually you're using additional FTEs that are temps that you need to train, and this is a cost that is happening every year of hiring, training. Not just only that, but with bots you can scale really quickly and scale down really quickly as needed. But more importantly than ever is really having quality and controls around the processes. How many processes do companies have that require a manual, human-based control, that if you can apply a robot to it, now your audit process is much quicker, your controls around that transaction become much better, and you have a lot more visibility around that. So those are some of the things that need to be thought about as you're trying to think about which processes can be selected for automation. Not just cost savings, not just increased quality, is additional areas that can really expand across the automation. And as you know, the expansion of RPA has happened in 2019, 2020. There's a lot more known about where can this be deployed. And we're going to be speaking about how, only thinking about cost savings or only thinking about big item tickets can really get in the way of scaling and getting a lot of benefit from RPA. So I wanted to talk about the main pillars and main pitfalls of why is an organization scaling and achieving organizational adoption? Because at the end, that to me is what it takes to scale this. All areas of the company from the top down need to embrace RPA technology, need to understand how it works, and need to be playing a role. And in order to do that, there's many things that happen, right? The first thing that always happens, at least has been happening for the past few years, is very difficult to get executive alignment. People are starting this without a clear vision. Somebody in one department decides to, hey, I want to implement RPA in invoice processing, very, very typical, within the finance organization, and they only focus on that process. One's expecting that once that benefit is achieved, there is going to be widespread organizational alignment because it's so great. And there's a process and a project that needs to be done to make sure that everybody understands how the technology works and where can it play a role within the organization. On the other side of the coin, there's organizations that are trying to boil the ocean, and knowing every single cent and opportunity that RPA can bring in before they get started, and this gets in the way of a lot of automation, and at the end it creates a lot of impatience within the organization. Then having realistic expectations. As great as this technology is, it's not magic. Do not expect 100% automation in most complex processes. A lot of organizations come into this saying it's everything or nothing. And I think the beauty of RPA is that it can actually have business rules to only attack the main high volume business problems and have people do the cognitive, business oriented task that is what really people work for. Understanding operational complexities is also very, often overlooked. How many managers say, this process is so simple that can be automated very simple, but once you get down to the details, that there's a lot of exceptions being thrown to your teams by vendors, by clients, by outside uncontrollable systems that you have no control over. Think about portals of your partners in, let's say, healthcare, in the insurance portals. They can change often, things of that nature that you need to have a plan for. And then at the end, there's a lot of organizations that will only want to do automations that have a very fast, quick paybacks, which you should begin there. But a 12-month payback, a 18-month payback is very attractive compared to many other investments. Trusting and building trust in the technology is something that is not about building trust in that UiPath or Automation Anywhere will work. I think that has been proven. Technology has widespread adoption now. It's about making sure that you have the right talent and expertise so that you don't have poor process deployment, which creates in the operation, insecurities around, is this technology going to do the transactions right? Am I going to have unresolved exceptions? Is there a transaction that is going to get stuck within my process and is going to create all sorts of issues at month-end close and things of that nature? So you want to make sure that you have a team that knows how to do the right process design, that can ask the right questions, and has the right development team with the right experience to ensure that the robot is managing the unexpected, exceptions in the right way, so that you don't lose trust and credibility with your operations. Which, if it happens, and it's kind of one of the #1 reasons why organizations stall their automation program, is because this happens, and then the operation is basically, giving bad press to your automation program. And finally, naturally, you need to have value capture. You need to manage your scope. You need to make sure that you don't have never-ending implementations that just keep on going and keep on going and keep on going, and making sure that your cost of implementation doesn't become uncontrollable. Because if that happens, at the end, you're going to have a lot of organizational impatience, you're going to lose sponsorship, and there's going to be a stalled automation initiative in your hands. So here's kind of why, going back into it, it's kind of a journey of what organizations go through when they're going down the path of automation, and why most organizations get stuck within 10 processes. First, like I mentioned, they don't have a true structured vision, so it's incomplete or overlooked. Then they go through the proof of concept, which can be completed, potentially partially successful. Either it took too long, the benefit that I was expecting wasn't there, kind of going back to what I was mentioning. So at the end, most organizations stop right there, and it's really hard to jumpstart it again. So once that happens, it's really hard to gather buy-in again, to try it again, to make it right. And before that, if you don't do these things, further investment gets stalled, and you're not able to get an operating model and the expansion and the necessary resources that you're going to need to make sure that you can scale, identify the right processes, have the right team in place to execute on that and deploy that to your teams, train your leading, who your tech savvy employees are in each one of the departments, and train them for them to be able to deploy automations within their department that could necessarily not make sense if you ask a professional COE, a little bit more expensive resource to do so. But those are kind of the things that you need to be thinking about. And then the most important thing is the ongoing support and continuous improvement. Sadly, these robots and processes do not stay exactly the same over time. So you're going to need to have a structured support team that can actually make sure that the value that was created during the development and design phase provides long-term value. And I think that's where, in my mind, a lot of organizations are not thinking about. They're just thinking about the front end. Let's do a POC. Let's make sure that this works. Let's hire a developer to make sure that they can do the work. And then at the end, it's a unstructured, non-scalable support team that can actually make sure that there's value maintained over time. So this said, I want to go through the second polling question. So, what is the primary challenge that is impacting your ability to scale your automation program? Is it finding the right resources? Is it, performance issues with the current RPA partner? Is it getting funds and providing ROI? Selecting additional processes to scale the program? Or I'm not facing any challenges? So I'm going to give you some time to respond to that.
All right, we have about 55% answered the question so far, so I'll just give them a couple more seconds, and then we'll bring you the results. I'm going to close out that poll and share the results. Okay, so finding the right resources to execute the program, 55%. Performance issues, 2%. Getting funds, improving ROI, 34%. And I'm not facing any challenges, 9%. Good for you, that 9%.
So I think it's interesting, and I don't know what you think, Chad, about finding the right resources to execute the program. I believe is the number one that people are facing. Scarcity on RPA technical resources across the world. It's a real problem. I think for the past 2, 3, 4 months, RPA developer has been the second most looked at person in LinkedIn.
Well, when you want to find the right resource, go find the right partner. So, when you were walking through your slides there, I was thinking the whole time, was like, yep, if you start your program, and if you start the program with the right partner, with a partner like you guys, then you're going to go in there and show them how to set those things up. You were able to bring the resources to bear that can get you through that first year, that first 18 months, and get that ROI turned over so that the program's paying for itself. You can lay down that clear vision. So a lot of what I see when customers fail when they start, it's because they don't hook up with the right partner. And guys with proven track records like you guys are where they need to turn so that they can set up the complete vision. You're right. My children die for lack of knowledge. Nobody's out teaching this stuff. They need partners like you guys to come in there and show them this is how you do it correctly. For those of us that did it in the early days, we had to figure it out. We already did the math. We have the formula to get to the moon. You don't have to rework the calculus. They need to come and have you guys show them exactly how to lay this thing down so that it is scalable, so that it is fast, so that the ROI is there.
So this being said, I wanted to ask you, and we're going to get now into the panel section of the presentation. Chet, so what do you think is the importance of having clear vision in the automation program for a company?
So I'm 51 years old now. I grew up listening to Zig Ziglar. Zig Ziglar, for those of you that don't know, is a great motivational speaker, best salesman ever walked the face of the earth. And he had a saying. He said, look, I got to see him when I was 16. I got to meet him. And he told the crowd there that day, he said, look, I could select one of you from out of the crowd, and in 10 minutes, have you shoot more accurately than the best archer in the United States. In 10 minutes is all it would take if I blindfolded the archer. Okay, you see what he's saying there? Is that when we have a clear line of sight, when we understand exactly what it is that we're going after, when there's more to the vision than just an opening statement, then we're able to capitalize on those things. Now, a lot of times when you're a customer and you're just getting started, you don't know all those things. And why would you? You've gone out and you found a piece of software, you've heard about a technology, you think that this is something that could apply, you start to do your research. But if you don't have the clear vision from day one on where your endpoint is, then you are consistently going to have to course correct. Oh, dang, I didn't know that I was going to need a support team. I thought I'd just build these and they'd run forever. Well, test suite. Had you thought about this up front and had a clear vision, knowing that testing was going to be important, you would have implemented test suite as you came along, knowing that that reduces your overall support team. And that's just an example. Process mining, for example, if you don't know about all the pieces of there and you don't have a clear vision on what am I going to go after, who is going to support it, what sort of executive support does it need, how am I going to calculate the value, if you don't have all of these things worked out up front, then you have to figure it out as you go. And we all know that we can't continue to change everything midstream when our vision is jumping around. We need to have a clear line of sight, we need to have a clear vision, and we need to find what the metrics are on how we're going to achieve that particular goal. And so the importance of clear vision is absolutely key. When you start, know where you're going, so this is the world of agile, right? It's the world of, I grew up waterfall. I had milestones along the way. So whether either methodology is fine, but you have key points along the way that will let you track how you're doing in response to your overall vision. But the point of having a clear vision of what am I going after, who's going to support it, how am I going to get it paid for, what is my ROI, those things are key, and they will make you struggle the entire journey if you don't work those out up front.
Hey, Chet, I have a question from the audience that I think relates well with this stage of the vision. So they're
Okay.
asking, we are in the process of getting started on RPA. We feel the IT team is really a bottleneck because they do not understand the business side. How do you overcome this challenge?
Okay, so I'm a 26, 27 year IT guy. I'm about a 10, 11, 12 year RPA guy. Now, when you're in IT, your job, your mission critical statement is protect the systems, protect the business. That's your mindset. That's how you're built. That's your job. Business is, how do I squeeze more out of this lemon? How can I get a few more points of profitability? How can I reduce my costs? Those are not the same vision. Now, RPA to be done and to be done correctly is a dance. I learned to dance when I was 8 years old from my grandmother. I learned how to waltz. IT has a definite role. IT should own support because they own production, but business should own the vision. Now, the great thing about RPA is there is room for everyone to be involved. IT needs to handle some of the big back-end heavy lifting, procure to pay, quote to cash, those sorts of things. But understand, your citizens can become developers. And a robot for every person is a real thing. The way that you have to overcome that challenge is don't blindside IT. Let IT know coming in that this is the clear vision that we are going after. This is how it is governed and regulated. Because the reason IT is stopping you right now, and this is, I don't have any details, but the reason IT normally stops RPA is because they don't understand that this is truly governed from end to end. This is not the Wild West. This is not releasing spaghetti code into the environment. More than likely, and I'll be happy to talk to them after the call or whenever, but more than likely IT doesn't have a very clear vision on what the tool does, how it's governed, and how it is safe for your environment. And that's why they've thrown up a wall. Business will always outrun IT. It's two different methodologies. But it takes two people to dance. Business and IT have to work together.
And I think it's very different to even for us within the organization as we began. As you know, we are also users of this technology. We're not just implementer. And getting to understand that this is a business-driven technology for IT folks is sometimes different. In many organizations, there is a constant battle between who owns it. Is it the operations? Is it finance? Is it IT? IT always plays a role. The back-end infrastructure, so, everything related to network and monitoring and patching, all of that needs to be owned by IT. It's the problem is that the development is so business-driven that IT doesn't play the regular role that they usually play on other technology implementations. So I understand that is always a battle. This being said, my recommendation is, like Chet said, make them part of it. Make sure that the deployment methodology is owned by them. Make sure that the support and business continuity plans is owned by them, but also make them understand that the role within the design, in this case, is heavily driven by the business. So let's continue into the next topic. Great topic and great questions. Thanks, Fabi. So as we were talking about talent shortage, I thought it would make sense for us to have a section to talk about building an effective RPA team. And what does an RPA team look like? There's many roles that need to be played. Some of them are not within technical resources. Some of them are pretty much your automation operators, your citizen developers. But in many cases, you need different skill sets that go from your infrastructure engineers that, like I mentioned, need to manage all the back end of where these robots are running from, and making sure that deployment and all of it is doing correctly. But then you need solutions architects that can really transform your business processes into robotic processes. For as much as robots do mimic what person's actions with different applications, robots have many other capabilities that can make the process much faster, quicker, better. So having those skill sets is critical. Like I mentioned, having business analysis is really important because this is a business-driven technology. As much as we want to have RPA developers just go ahead and transform requests from subject matter experts in the business into code, to me, sometimes that is a recipe for disaster when it comes down to POCs. You want to make sure that a person that understands process documentation, that understands process exceptions and implications, is involved in the process of designing each one of your bots. And then, of course, going all the way down to, once those things are in place, you need to have your change managers, you need to have all those things that we know that are needed for the engagement this big. But you got to look at what is, after these bots are put into production, how is the support team going to look like? And they're not just RPA developers. It's a very specific skill set. Our true hardcore coders don't want to be supporting something that people did. On the other way around, people who are really good at coding are not your typical customer service person that is going to be trying to help you and getting things resolved. So it's a fine line that needs to be walked, and there's a lot of roles that need to be played. So in this case, I wanted to ask Chet, what are you seeing our clients struggling with shortage of talent? I think that we mentioned a little bit from that question, but how should our organizations build their implementation capabilities? It's pretty much the question I wanted to ask.
Well, man, you nailed it, and you've got it on the slide here. There's lots of different roles. One of the great things about RPA, about hyperautomation, about fully automated enterprises, as the name changes as we move forward in time, there is room for everyone to play a part in RPA. And it's not just a room so that everyone feels included. The different skill sets from across the organization is what makes RPA so powerful. You mentioned support, and your best developers don't want to be your support people. Three things happen when you move to production. You do a code review, and you want a heavy hitter doing that code review because you're going to hold your company to the highest standards. A knowledge transfer. One of the things, so I was a support guy. I was a support guy for years. I was a coder for years. But understand the reason that I excelled over in support as a developer was I now owned all the code across the organization. And a lot of times when we're presenting to the individual that we want to run our support team, we need to make them understand they're going to be a code review that you're going to be responsible for. A knowledge transfer, you will have working knowledge of all of the automations inside this organization, and a search for reusable components. What we've got to do is we've got to take support off of the bottom rung and stop letting everyone believe that we put the not as wells in support, and that support is a leader. It is the face of your RPA program to your organization. So Eduardo, imagine this: you've got some bots in, and the business calls into support and says, "Hey, I haven't gotten records in 3 hours. What's going on down there?" That is a terrible, frightening feeling for your reputation as an RPA team inside an organization. Now imagine that exact same scenario. 8 minutes into the alert, the support team picks up and calls the business unit and says, "Hey, I've got an alert on one of your robots. Our SLA is now being activated. I have a 3-hour window to get it back into production. You'll be updated every 20 minutes. These are the people involved. We'll update you in 20 minutes. Thank you very much." Now, imagine the difference in the feeling of the organization when they dealt with scenario one. Support didn't even know we had a freaking problem. And scenario two, I didn't even know we had a problem. And support called me, said they're on top of it, and are giving me regular updates. And that's just the support section of your question here. But understand each one of the sections inside your organization needs to be thought about that way, because you only have one chance for the first impression. And for all of the goodwill and all of the successes that you can build up in an RPA program very quickly, it takes one nightmare to get your executive to go, maybe I shouldn't be the one backing this. Oh, there's a possibility that this could cause some sort of problem. So we've got to be very careful along the way, and to make sure that we put the right skill sets in the right slot. But I wanted to hit on that support thing there. I differ from a lot of the world in a lot of ways, but I believe that your support team needs to be one of the strongest points on your team, because they are going to be your face of your program to the organization as production.
Now, important that you say that, because then you get into the other question: how many processes do I need to have in production for me to really justify having a full team support? Right? There is a chicken or the egg situation happening in all this. You're going to begin with your 2 to 3 processes, 5 processes. Those processes need to be supported at the same level of service level agreement that Chet was mentioning. But you know, how do you build the balance of costing? Because one of the things and the main mistakes that a lot of people make is that now they have the person who built it supporting it and getting in the way of that person doing additional robots and really creating a lot of impatience across the whole organization now.
But Eduardo, wait a second. Are you saying that a developer that built a process has production access? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it happens often. It happens often, which is a key mistake. One
second. It's funny that you say that, because my very first automation, this is over 10, 11, 12, almost 12 years ago. My very first set of automations we built, man, we were good. We got these automations built. They were in production. They ran clean. Me and 3 other guys were working on it. 1 lady and 2 other guys. We're working on our next automations, and Hadi's dad got sick and he had to go home. For a month, he had to go back to Pakistan. No problem. We got it covered. Well, we got that first scenario, the support call. I got the call. I was like, and we hadn't had data in 2 days. What's going on? Well, we hadn't done any of the background documentation. We didn't understand how Hadi's program worked. He supported it. You know, so that nightmare that you're talking about is true. I've lived it. And they've got to be very careful. And if it's 5 or 6 automations before they put a full-time person into there, well, understand if that support person's not doing support work, they can help you with some of your coding. So your point's extremely valid. I wanted to validate it because that actually happened to me. And if you have a developer with production access, you have lit the fuse. It is a matter of time until something happens.
Yep. So to give you some actionable information from at least our experience at Oxys, we have found that in our world of process automation, a full-time support, a full-time equivalent is required once you get to 20 to 30 processes in production, once they're really well done. Once all of the monitoring alerts and everything that is needed within the code has really been implemented correctly. Beyond that, you're going to need one sooner than that, because it's going to be breaking often. But you know, if you think about it, if you do it right, and then you need 20 processes to get into production, for most organizations, that means a full year of work. So it's going to take you a long time for you to require that, a year, 18 months type of a journey. So this being said, let's get into the next topic. Thanks, Chet. Very interesting. You know, how to make sure that your organization goes through organizational adoption. There is always a lot of questions around, you know, how do I position robots? There's going to be a lot of employees with a lot of resistance. You know, they're going to be afraid of losing their jobs. And in a way, it feels like it's going to be really hard to get the information that you need from them to be able to, you know, create your pipeline and go beyond POC to really scaling, and thinking that your employees are going to be holding their cards really tight, not showing where are the big opportunities. I think there's a general fear that I see. Just a quick point of view on my end is that once you do a couple right and you get really good, you know, press within the organization, people start to open up. But I just wanted to get your point of view on that.
So you need to have, you've got to have an ally. Work with people that you get along with early. You've got to get some wins. You've got to prove this out, because if IT brings it forward, or the business brings it forward, or they bring it forth jointly, that your general public, your general user across the organization is going, freaking great. Another 2-year, $30 million implementation that may or may not change anything. RPA and using a platform like UiPath, which is the only platform in the market, is a completely different animal. And you've got to work with champions, people that will champion your cause if you prove yourself. So take I would always love for it to come from the CEO that he evangelizes across the organization, and then we engage with each one of the business leader LOBs, the VPs, and then we enlist or garner support from each one of those, and then we educate those people, and then we execute flawlessly. That's how organizational adoption works. But you don't always get to start with the CFO willing to hold the torch up and say, this is what we're doing. Sometimes you have to earn that inside the organizations, and you earn that with quick and clean wins. we make sure that the message is put out and say, we're not here to lay you off. We're here to take the parts of your job that you don't like, because we're not going to hire new people next year, and we want to grow. Hey, revenues are down. COVID has hit us hard, and we've reduced headcounts. We need you, the user, to get behind this RPA platform and change the way that we do work. That is a completely different message than, hey, Eduardo, I'm going to send some guys over there and we're going to automate your job. The message is important.
Yep, I agree. In fact, I think that most organizations are now adding, as part of their hiring process of finance employees, trying to understand their attitude towards automation. Are you interested in automation? Do you feel like it's a threat? Like most people, and I think the role of finance from the top down all the way down to the staff that is doing the transactional work, the job of the finance team in the next 5 years is going to change dramatically, where you want to have within those teams people who want to do these automations, people who are embedded and understanding of what these things can do. Just like macros came in, Excel came in, this is going to be the next step of automation across the different departments. And I think it's natural that that's going to happen. But while it's happening, I think I agree with you that the key here is to really get champions that will not only give you good opportunities at the beginning, are excited about how this can help them, but then will help you to actually evangelize across the organization, saying, hey, this gave me so much time that I wanted to use for being able to build the reports, not having to do a lot of overtime during my close. Those things that are happening every single day in the finance organization. And now this technology can really be of help. So
one thing I want to add there before we move on, understand the companies that will be wildly successful in automation over the next few years are the ones that take this all the way to their onboarding, that take this all the way to their hiring practice. If you give me the children for 5 years, I'll own the future. I'm not going to tell you who that's quote from because he's a bad guy, but the theory was sound. If you change an organization, or if an organization gets in their mind the vision that every new person that we hire or bring into this organization will have an aptitude and be open to being part of our automation program, as well as the job that they have, understand what that does as attrition occurs. And the new blood, whether they be young or long in the tooth like me, when they come into the organization, if on the onset of their work inside this organization, they are going to support and be a part of the RPA or the automation program that's running there, then now every fresh eye that comes in says, oh, we can probably automate that. Oh, we can probably automate that. So little tip and trick that really is not out in the public as much as it ought to be. Change your hiring practice as your RPA program begins to take hold, and everyone that comes into your organization should be a contributing member to that RPA program.
Great, thanks, Chet. So let's go into the next polling question, which is, do you agree that working with an external partner can help you accelerate your automation journey? Strongly agree, neutral, disagree, or strongly disagree?
Oh, can I answer this one?
Yep.
Oh, I strongly agree.
No, I do too. I know it's my job, is what I do for a living. I just think that having a team that has done this in the past can really bend that curve of knowledge and drive a lot of the benefit faster, even though it's may not be for the long run, potentially just help you get set up, get some of your team members trained, build your COE, or whoever, or the governance. Let's call it, not all organizations require a COE, but at least build the governance so that this can be deployed and people can get trained, and people can have control over where automations are sitting and how they're being deployed. It's the key to making sure that this doesn't stall.
So Eduardo, do you know what can absolutely cripple an infant RPA program?
What's that?
Having a bad partner. So it's important that they get with partners like you guys, like Oxys, that have a proven track record, that have done this. This is not their first day on the job, because a great partner will speed you. It will accelerate you faster than any other single thing that you can do. But a bad partner can hurt you worse than any other thing. I don't know if we skewed the numbers there, buddy, but
Yep. No, I would agree. You know, doing an investment
better than a
on
good
something that,
partner.
yep.
All right, so we've got the polling results. 56% said strongly agree, 40% said agree, and 2% said neutral. 0 to disagree, and 2% strongly disagree.
Got it.
And Chet, this is a question for you. They're
Okay.
saying, you working with so many partners, what do you think are the key characteristics that make a good partner?
Well, they've got a proven track record. They're able to come in and help you paint that vision from the very beginning. They're able to help you expand your workforce. When you can't hire, they have it on the bench. They have the resources to help you build. They're willing to train your people. The partner's not looking to lay down, I'm going to be here forever. They're willing to meet you where you are. Maybe you need a partner to come in and help you get set up, train you, and get you started, but you want to do your implementations internally on your own once you're capable. You need a partner that is willing to meet you where you are and puts your success above billing hours for them. And Oxys is a great example. They'll come in and help you for a few months and get you started and up and running, or they'll support you long term. You can turnkey your stuff with these guys, but get with a partner that has a proven track record. Check their references, call and talk to people who've worked with them. But absolutely, great partners are key to getting you up and running quickly and cleanly and playing long ball. And you want to play long ball here.
Thanks, Chet. So looking at the, you know, what does it take to operate at scale? I wanted to bring up at least our point of view as partners. We're an exclusive UiPath implementer. I wanted to give it a chance for Chet to take some time to take a look at, you know, how does the journey of automation work? You know, the whole life cycle of automation, and what are the problems and key things that you need to take into consideration as you're you know, getting to this at scale?
Sure. So when you're running at scale, and this slide has iterated so many times. I did the linear version of this a couple hundred times last year. But there are different phases, and there are different tools that sit inside each one of these phases that make this the only platform in the market. You know, we go from discover. How are you going to determine where you should be automating? We have a finite amount of resources. What are we going to select first to automate? And then how do we find those processes that can save our company $1 million a year? Well, that's process mining. How am I going to build out all of the documentation that needs to be built to automate these processes? That's task capture. Where am I going to organize all of this information so that it's readily usable to my COE? It's Automation Hub. And as you move from discover, how do I know what to do across the entire platform? You end up at insights. How am I going to show the value of what it is that our automation program is bringing? Because if you don't show the value that your program is bringing to your organization, why are you doing it? They're not going to know if you don't tell them, and they're not going to believe you if you can't back it up with the math. That's what insights are for. So those are the goalposts that set on this continuum. It's circle now, but so discover, how do I know what to do, and how do I show the value of what I've done? Well, you know, how are these things going to be built? Who's going to build these bots? Well, that's Studio Pro for your exceptional developers that are going to be using Test Suite. It's Studio for your average developer. It's Studio X for your non-technical business users to be able to build automation. That's how these are built. Well, what's the run phase, and what actually does this work? Well, those are the robots themselves. There are unattended robots that run in the background, procure to pay, quote to cash. They know when to start, they know when to stop, they run off triggers, they run off schedulers. Well, then there's attended bots that sit on my desktop as my personal robot assistant and do what I ask it to do, picture in picture, so that I retain the keyboard and the mouse while it's working in the background on my computer. And then there's test robots. Nothing will test your automations better than a test robot. Let test bots test your robots before reality does. And then you
go ahead. So what I wanted to add a little bit onto this is that truly, I think that years of experience working with robots have really led me to believe that UiPath has really taken a great step on hitting the main pain points that we were hitting 5 years ago.
Yeah.
At the beginning, UiPath, well, RPA was basically catered to really large financial organizations with thousands and thousands and thousands of transactions, which is still great. But at the moment, those organizations were building in-house all of the solutions that are required for automation. If you're not measuring the benefit of what's being provided to the organization, it really doesn't exist. It's really hard to say we are bringing value to the organization, and then immediately somebody asks you, okay, how does that look like? And okay, give me a week so that I can extract all the data, analyze it, and give you a report. And that used to be the case.
Yeah.
And I think that what we're seeing now is that UiPath, in a sense, has really tried to look at the journey and where there has been a significant struggle with Automation Hub, with Insights, and with many other parts of the platform to really help organizations scale and be able to deploy automations in a way that it's seamless. Before it was really hard. You couldn't talk about people having attendant robots all over the place. You actually had to send the code. They would have to download it. They would have to deploy it within the robot internally in their laptop. And now everything has been really integrated in a way where the COE can receive automations from, let's say, the head of automation in finance. And say, hey, I would like for every AP clerk to get this automation in their robot. And the COE can vet it, make sure that it's great, deploy it, and everybody instantly has it on their laptop. So it's something that has really changed the way automation is being brought to organizations. And I think that's a key differentiator of how UiPath is really trying to tackle those main operational issues that have been in the way of hyper-automation.
So a couple of things I want to add to that is one is process mining, being able to use true machine learning to go find these processes. Document understanding, unstructured, semi-structured data is now taken in through ML or through machine learning models.
Eddie, I have a question here. Could the panelists talk through their experiences using an agile framework such as Scrum, Lean, or SAFe to implement their RPA solutions, and what were the success stories and areas of opportunities to learn from?
So I can take that, Chad, if you mind.
Hey, go ahead.
So
sure.
we actually tried waterfall at the beginning and ended up, being scared of agile because of all the changes that come with it so often, and knowing that RPA and robots are like a house. You can always make them better. You can have an architect working on a house 100 years and never be 100% happy with it. So I understand the complexities and the I would say the challenges of choosing that. So what we have done is turn it around and say, even though we're going to be working with agile development, we're going to be working with a very, very tight scope of exceptions that need to be handled. And we're going to apply agile to every single exception that comes out our way that is not within those. Doing this has really enabled us to deliver visible timelines where in the past it was really difficult to maintain the team structured and everybody rowing on the same direction. Chet, do you have any answers on that?
So the only problem that any old guy has with agile is minimum viable product. I didn't like the term then. I don't like the term now. But what you clearly brought out, Eduardo, is that with RPA it's a little bit different. We're going to be able to record that function. We're going to know end to end what it does, and where we're going to see that variation is how are we handling the exceptions. So the agile framework and the agile methodology of we're going to turn something out every week, I love it. You won't find anywhere that you are able to code or low code or no code as quickly as you can inside the RPA framework. So keeping the speed of agile there is I'm a huge fan of. But just like you said, locking down those requirements so that we're delivered. You handle your variations in your exception handling inside those bots. So agile framework works great. That's what the majority of the world uses today.
Yeah. So Kristen, while we ask the other questions, why maybe we don't launch the next polling question in the meantime, since we're 5 minutes from.
Absolutely, that's fine. Do we have any other questions, Fabi, that you want to ask the speakers while we are winding down the clock?
Yes. So question for Chet. And Eddie, I don't know if you want to talk briefly about what a consultation would look like, maybe to paint a little bit.
Yes. So really quickly. So if we wanted, so the last question that we have is, would you like to have a consultation with Oxys to explore, you know, any way that we could support your automation program? And what we would like to do is basically come in, really understand where you are, seeing, you know, where have you thought that automation can really be useful, understand your specific business. One of the key things about RPA is that, I'm telling you now, outside of invoice processing, I haven't done the same process for 2 companies ever. So whenever people tell me, what is the specific business process that I can come in and solve, everybody knows where they're throwing people at a problem, where they're having issues moving data from one system to another, when they're having issues reconciling information, when they're having issues extracting information from suppliers or vendors, or actually creating information for their customers in the billing area. So it's important for us to really take an understanding of your business, do a quick assessment on where it's time being spent, take a look at a couple of those processes and understand if they make sense to do a potential POC, and then in parallel present what would it take to actually build the vision for the organization for your automation program.
For those executives that are further in their journey and they are having more issues scaling, not necessarily getting started.
So for those, of course, we would love to understand what has been done, how is your operating model being created today, who is playing which roles, and if there is anything that we can come in and strengthen with our experience and try to redeploy, rebuild some of the processes, putting the governance around how the automations need to be designed, built, and deployed, and also maintained going forward. Because I think, and there's, as I mentioned, there's too many areas. So we're going to do a full assessment on how organizations are analyzing their pipeline, how is it being evaluated, all the way through how is it being supported. So we would take a look at that, understand it right, and see if there is any place where we can actually provide some help to get them to scale.
Tell me where it hurts and follow the man hours. Where are the keystrokes?
Chet, and this question is for you. Chet
Okay.
said UiPath was the only platform in the market. What did he mean by that?
What I said was UiPath is the only complete platform in the market. All of our competitors have tools, but none of them go from the discover, which is using true machine learning to determine where you should automate, process mining, task mining, automation hub, the collection point. No one has the complete platform. None of the other platforms have document understanding that are built into the platform. Understand, UiPath is built that each one of the functioning members inside the platform is a multiplier to the rest of the platform. So what I meant by that is it's much more than just an automation tool. It's a discovery tool. It's a data ingestion tool. It gives you the ability to take your machine learning models, your algorithms, drop them in a canister, and then drag them into a workflow as a function inside the AI fabric. So that's what I meant by that.
Awesome. And I have a last question, and then we can wrap up. But I think this, Eddie, would be good for you. When you have a shared service center in a country with lower wages than US, how do you balance RPA cost savings with that? Because sometimes it may result cheaper to have someone doing it manually for $500 a month rather than having a bot with all the infrastructure it requires. How do you present the benefits to the stakeholders in a way that they don't prefer hiring someone at the wage rather than starting this journey?
So there are different things that need to be played in there. There is going to be naturally some processes that you will never be able to go around that issue. I just wanted to clarify that. I want to be here as transparent as I can. I know we only have 1 minute left, so I'll try to be quick. The last thing that I would say is there's a lot more cost than the cost of salary embedded into these processes. Specifically, those processes that need to be automated usually have staggering turnover rates, and hiring costs, the retraining, and getting efficiency and effectiveness into that process have a great value to beyond just cost savings. I know we just hit our 1 p.m., but I hope we got it.
Yes, I think we did, and I appreciate you minding that clock, Eduardo. It's such a challenge, but we do try to respect your time and our audience time. So with that said, we may just wrap things up. We appreciate all of you today. Thank you for joining us. And again, a special thanks to our speakers, Eduardo and Chet, and of course to Access, our continued partner. If you want to continue that conversation, we hope that you do reach out to both of our speakers. They did offer the slide deck. If you would like a copy, just reach out to Fabiana. I did put her email in the chat area. You'll get a brief survey as soon as you disconnect. And then also tomorrow, you get a follow-up with any of the questions that we didn't get to. They have been gracious enough to offer to answer those offline, and we'll be sending that summary to you tomorrow in the wrap-up. We do hope you all receive some valuable info during your time with us. This does conclude today's program. Stay well and stay connected.
Thank you.